my 20 terabyte Drobo, and it goes to sleep when it's not been used. So I think it's recording now. So tonight's lab, we are going to start to work on setting up our web servers to go behind our firewall. So remember, we are creating this pfSense firewall. We created a DMZ interface, otherwise known as a DMZ zone. And in that zone, we're going to have 2 web servers. And then we're going to use pfSense to load balance, which is where you spread the load across more than one server. So if one server goes down, your whole website doesn't go down. We're going to spread the load across those 2 web servers using pfSense's load balancing option. So how many of you still have your Kali Linux, either your Kali Linux VMs or your Kali Linux ISO?
I have mine.
Okay.
Yeah, both.
Anybody not have their Kali Linux distro or a Kali Linux VM?
Still have both, but I might need to get rid of the ISO because Windows Defender really hates it.
I bet. I bet.
Mine deleted itself a while ago.
Do you have any Kali Linux VMs?
No, that's why I'm as they just got cleared for some reason.
Okay. Do you have the ISO?
Yes, I believe I do.
Okay. So for those of you who don't have Kali Linux, let's walk through installing Kali Linux from scratch. So, okay, so let's start with who does not have the Kali Linux ISO at the very least? Anybody? All right, I will assume silence is golden and that you all have at least the ISO, if not the VM. So let's start with, we're going to create a new VM.
Hey, Troy.
Yes.
Is it all right if we just use the one that we used for our final, or do you want us to have a fresh copy
No,
made?
I think it's absolutely fine if you use the one from your final, especially if you have the clone, and you can clone it, and you can clone it twice. And I'm also going to recommend that you only do about, like 1 processor, or do 2 processors and 2 gigs of RAM, because you're going to have to run your pfSense and both of your your web servers at the same time. And if you have too much RAM, your computer's not going to like it, right? So if you clone it, go ahead and clone it, and then turn down the number of procs to like 2, and the number of gigs of RAM to like 1 or 2 gigs is all you'll need. Okay, so if you're installing Kali from scratch, you're going to go up here to File, New Virtual Machine, Next. You're going to pick your installer. And let's see if I have Kali Linux installer. There it is. And next, Other. We're going to do Linux. And this is Debian. So Kali Linux runs on Debian. So we're going to scroll up here and pick the latest Debian 64-bit. So you're going to pick Linux Debian 10.x 64-bit. Next. You're going to name it. I'm not going to name it Debian. I'm going to name it Kali Web 1. Kali Web 1. And I'm going to store my VM in my D drive VMs, and then I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Kali Web 1, because I don't want to fill up my C drive, right, Tony? Web 1. I think it was Tony that filled up his C drive, and it led to all kinds of difficulties. All right, so I'm just going to do 2 cores, and I'm just going to do 2 gigs of RAM, and I'm going to use I need to change this VM, but I'll do that in a second. I'm going to just use NAT for now. Next. LSI Logic recommended. Next. SCSI recommended. Next. Create new disk, and then we're going to use whoops, create new disk. Next, and then we're going to store as one file is what we want to do. And Kali, yeah, let's just do 20. I think that should be okay. I can't remember. Who remembers how much space? I mean, we don't even need to install all the tools and stuff. We're just going to use it as a web server. But let's do 20. And we're going to call it Kali Web 1 VMDK. Next. And then we're going to customize hardware. And the reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to do custom. And I believe I set my DMZ for the firewall on VMnet 3. And I'll go back and verify, but I believe my third NIC on my pfSense firewall is set to VMnet 3. Close, finish. All right, here she comes. And powered on. We're gonna stretch.
You set it for NAT.
Install. Yeah, I set it for NAT, and then I went in to edit the hardware to change it.
Okay.
Yep. So I booted it. It booted into this menu. I'm going to install. I don't like the graphic user install. I like the text one, but you're free to use whichever one of those you want. We'll do install. And here we go. So we're going to do English.
So you modified the hardware, but you did.
Modified the hardware. I clicked on the network card, the network,
Yeah.
and then I changed it from NAT to custom VMnet 3.
3, you said? The DMZ?
Yeah. And that should be set to, here, let me break out of this. That should
This is
be,
the Opti 1, yeah?
yeah.
DMZ.
We're going to check our firewall. We're going to see, I think VMnet 3 was my DMZ and it, yeah.
Okay.
Network adapter 3 was set to VMnet 3. All right, so come back into here. So we're going to do the country is the United States, English, American.
Edit.
Mine said network autoconfig failed.
Oh, that's right, because we changed it to be the DMZ before we installed it. It's not going to be able to access the internet, which is okay. I'm almost caught up to you. So we are going to configure the network manually. Configure the network manually. So what did we set our DMZ IP subnet to? And how could we figure that out?
You go to the DMZ, which is also opt1 or EM2, and then you go and find it out from the IP address and the CIDR notation.
You got it. You got it, you got it. So right here, here's our IP. We're going to come back over here. So for me, I don't know if you set it to the same, but 192.168.50. And it can't be .1 because that's the IP address of our interface on our firewall, right? So it can't be .1, so I could make it .2. Sure, let's do that, .2. And I can also go /24 like that. The gateway is the IP address of my firewall, right? It's isolated off the network in the DMZ, and it has to go through the firewall to get to the internet. So the gateway for this web server is going to be the DMZ IP address of my firewall. and which I set mine to 50.1. Okay. The name server, yep, that would also be the inside address. We could make it 8.8.8.8, but let's just make it our firewall, and we'll turn on DNS porting for the firewall, which I think is already turned on. All right, enter your host name. We're going to call this Kali Web 1. Domain name, mydom.com. New user. I'm going to create another user in addition to root. I'm going to call him Troy. And password. And cancel, because it's not going to be able to get to a time server. Okay. Pick my time zone. We're in Mountain.
I remember how complicated this used to be when I was like 14 trying to figure out how to use Kali, and I was like, oh god, installation, this is so difficult.
Do you recall this is being recorded? So, guided, we're going to use the entire disk. Okay. And then, yep, there's the disk. Enter. All files on one partition. That's fine. We don't got to create multiple partitions. And finish partitioning and write the changes to the disk. Scroll over to yes. Write the changes to the disk.
So we are fine using a old Kali parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
Absolutely. All we want is a web server. So this, tonight, we'll probably go for another 45 minutes or so. And then I'll let you guys continue to work on your own, but we will continue this lab on Monday because there's going to be some steps to get this computer to access the internet. It's behind our firewall, right? So we got to make sure that it can access the internet through our firewall. And so that will be important for us. All right. If you need to use a proxy, we do not. It probably is not going to be able to connect because we have to set up the firewall to allow access.
What are we using in Kali to actually host the site?
We're setting up Kali because we want access to the web server.
Well, what are we using for the web servers is what I meant. Apache or?
Yeah, that's what I used originally. Let's see, United States. Sure. Okay, well, that is crunching away, which it won't be able to do anything because it doesn't have it. We're going to come here and go to 192.95.
Did anybody figure out the fix for not being able to control Alt after getting into
Yes.
pfSense?
Justin had multiple monitors, and when he went down to one monitor, it resolved the problem. And then he went from one monitor back to two, and it still worked. So that was Justin's issue. Okay, so we got to add a rule. And the rule is going to be that we're going to allow IPv4 traffics from our DMZ. So we got to go over here, but I'm looking at the LAN right now. Default will allow LAN to any rule. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to come over here to DMZ. We're going to add a rule. We're going to pass from the DMZ IPv4 TCP from the DMZ net to any. So what this rule is this rule is saying that we're going to pass traffic from the DMZ outbound to any other location. Okay, so let me add it. And then
Would you mind reviewing the rule set again? I'm so sorry.
Yes. So we went to firewall rules, and then we clicked on the DMZ link at the top, and then we clicked on add. We're adding a pass rule. We're going to allow traffic on the DMZ interface, IPv4 TCP. Any IP, DMZ IP is allowed to access, instead of any, I'm going to say WAN address.
I do. Oh,
Network. So we're going to allow traffic to go from the DMZ to the WAN. Okay. So let's see if this works here. Save it. Okay. So I'm going to compare this LAN rule right here, IPv4 from the LAN network, default allow LAN to any. Well, I don't want to allow my DMZ to go to my LAN, so I modified it. It's coming from the DMZ network destined for the WAN because my DMZ should not have access to the LAN network. Why? Why should my DMZ not have access to the LAN network?
It's outside of the network, so it needs to not be able to communicate with the internal.
Right, and the whole purpose of creating a demilitarized zone that's open to the world for web servers is to isolate it from our more protected LAN network or local area network where all of our more sensitive stuff is going to be kept. Okay, apply changes. There we go. So we have, and the LAN, it can go anywhere. So my LAN outbound can go from the LAN to the DMZ, and it can go from the LAN to the WAN. That is okay because it's outbound only. It's not inbound and outbound. Okay. All right. So now if I go back to VMware, go back to my Kali Web 1. Let's see if I can see it or not. It's still not. Okay, so I can ping myself, and I can ping my new web server. So I can ping it, but it's still not getting outbound. So I might have to do a little more troubleshooting. Let me try one other thing. Let me try turning the firewall off for a second and see if that allows outbound. CTO disabled. Okay, firewall is disabled.
So the purpose of this lab right now, and we're going to continue on Monday,
Yes.
is we're setting up two different web servers. One is 2016. This other one is a Kali server.
No, you can
Is
pick.
it-
I'm walking through Kali, but if you feel more comfortable using a web server under Windows Server 2016, you are free to do so.
Oh, okay.
And so you would just install Windows Server 2016. I would do the whole desktop experience one, the standard. And then-
Yeah, I made that mistake here. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you will want to pick the role that gives you the web server. And I don't remember, it might be just called like web.
It's web services, but it's IAS basically.
And
right?
just review our lessons from we were using Cengage for all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So you don't have to use Linux. I'm giving you both in the lab and in the final, you'll get your choice. You can use Windows or Linux. I don't mind. You can pick which one.
For this, would it be possible to use both, just so we have experience with both?
Yeah, if you want to use both, I have no problem with that at all. And
So after making that rule, it still gave me the same error code, the bad archive mirror.
yeah, me too. So troubleshooting, except that I am locked. Which computer am I on? Yeah, it's not giving it back to me. Yeah, bummer. Okay, there. So that.
Hey Troy, will you be able to walk through how to do the DMZ rule later tonight again?
Yes, I will. You bet.
I missed it because I was setting up my Kali. I'm copying it.
Yep, no worries.
I'm probably a little ahead here, but we should